Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Signals Notebook Connect community series in 2024. My name is Diana Tran. I am the Senior Product Marketing Specialist here at Revvity Signals and will be your moderator for the session. This ongoing Signals Notebook community series will be an opportunity for you to learn about newly added Signals Notebook functionalities and hear how others are using Signals Notebook to improve productivity and data transparency through enhanced collaboration. As always, we want to hear from you. If you have any suggestions on topics for our upcoming Connects, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll put my email in the open chat to the right-hand side. This Connect will focus on formulation scientists and how Signals Notebook can help transform your workflows. Just to let you know, all sessions are recorded and available for streaming at revvitysignals.com. A couple of quick housekeeping reminders before we start. We will have ample time at the end for questions, so please submit your questions through the question box located in the right-hand side of your screen. Future dates for Signals Notebook Connect for 2024 has been shared along with this registration, so I hope you will join us for future programs scheduled. Next one is for June 26th, which will focus on our APIs and more. Details to come in the upcoming week. Now let's dive into it. Overall, today we will focus on how the Revvity Signals team works with leaders in formulation sciences, how Signals Notebook supports upstream and downstream formulation science workflows, how you can leverage formulation science data for enhanced and how you can leverage formulation science for enhanced analytics. I'm pleased to introduce our speakers for today's meeting, Philip Skinner and Marie Ju. Philip is a Spotfire evangelist, specifically in life sciences and chemistry communities, and is delighted to bring his experience and passion to provide consulting to customers of Revvity Signals who are using or considering using Spotfire. Before joining Revvity, Philip spent a decade working as a medical chemist at the San Diego-based biotech, progressing GPCR ligands into clinical development for metabolic diseases. Philip holds a PhD in chemistry from the University of Durham and completed postdoctoral studies at ETH in Zurich. Marie Ju is our senior field application scientist at Revvity Signals. With a background in chemical engineering and specialization in formulation chemistry, Marie has extensive experience working in R&D formulation laboratories. She began her career at Axalta Coating Systems, where she gained a solid foundation in formulation chemistry while working with the industrial coating R&D team. Later, she expanded her expertise by joining the R&D team at Sherwin-Williams. Today, Marie leveraged her unique background to deeply understand the needs of formulation and effectively promote Signals Notebook capabilities. Her insights and experience allow her to help scientists streamline their workflows and simplify their daily tasks, ultimately enabling them to focus on driving innovation in formulation science. So let's join together in welcoming both speakers for today's meeting. Without further ado, I will hand over my controls to Philip so we can begin today's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Let me put up my slide here. We can get going. Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, depending on where in the world you are. So welcome from not so sunny Southern California. I'm Philip Skinner. I'm the development lead product manager for Signals Notebook. So it's my job to build the capabilities that we have in there, supporting our community of scientists working in the formulation sciences. So I'm delighted to talk to you today about kind of what we've done, what we're thinking about doing in the future, a little bit about how we work with the organizations that we work with. And then I'll pass over to my colleague Marie, who's going to talk in more specifics about how Signals Notebook is implemented and used by our partners in the formulation space through in more real life. So I'm sure you all know what formulations is, but I think it's very mind-opening to think about how formulations is prevalent everywhere. We work with organizations that are making pharmaceuticals, from top 5 pharmaceutical companies to small virtual biotechs. And we work with many organizations that make paper, that make paints, that make materials to polish silica discs for computer chips, that make coatings for screws and bolts and all kinds foods and all kinds of materials. So formulation science is to us the product of making materials from more materials, so commercial materials that can be sold across a huge disparate set of industries. Signals Notebook has a history as a small molecule centric application, and many people still think of it as that, but it's grown significantly from that. It is now really the only true cloud SaaS signals software as a service electronic lab notebook that has embedded ChemDraw, so it has chemical intelligence. It also has biological sequence intelligence. It has many different other sort of domain-specific capabilities built in. So it can serve both your small molecule chemistry community, your biomolecular science community, and your formulation science community on the same platform in a way that other ELNs, cloud or not, cannot. And this is why we see it used very commonly amongst those sort of small virtual biotechs and lean organizations, all the way to top tier pharmaceutical companies and the brands that you would recognize throughout the world in providing paints, fragrances, and other materials. So when we think about supporting a particular branch of science, we kind of think in a hierarchy of needs of what do we need to do from the basic to the advanced. And we always think about the basic are often things that are needed by all scientists everywhere. So the ability to write things down without the application getting in the way. So we have, Signals is at heart as a lab notebook. The purpose of a lab notebook is to write down what you do in your experiments, plan what you're going to do, and capture the documentation of what you did do. And a lab notebook should at heart be very freeform and allow you to capture content in whichever way you want to, be that Microsoft Office files, chemical drawings through ChemDraw, capturing images, capturing PDFs, and so on. That data should be shareable, should also be able to be controlled as to its sharing throughout your organization, depending on business rules. So if your organization wants to segment access depending on a given project or a given location, then you should be able to do that. Building off of that kind of foundation of sort of shared capabilities, we layer on capabilities that are specific to the scientific domain you work on. So obviously we use ChemDraw for our small molecule chemists. Here what we're talking about is essentially a lot of math. So being able to calculate the composition of the materials that you're making from the adducts that you're using to make it. Being able to recalculate that when, for example, one of those adducts is volatile, and as it evaporates, it changes the composition of your material. Being able to calculate that one of your adducts is a filler and used to take that up to your desired batch amount. The ability to add adducts that are mixtures of adducts themselves, to capture the data that you your process parameters that you capture during the course of making your material, and capture the test results that you're making these materials for a purpose. So having a place to capture those test results and associate it with the batches that you're making is really important. to the formulation science community. Obviously, the domain-specific capabilities we have differ when you move from, say, small molecule synthesis to formulation science to biomolecular science and beyond. And then a core purpose of an electronic lab notebook is really to help your organizations collaborate, and in collaboration gain knowledge and make better decisions on what to make next. So looking at the data that you've collected across your organization, does that data suggest that you make something else that you could do, some additional experiment that you could make, some additional material that you could try to make? Does changing the process parameters, changing the composition, are there trends that you could elucidate there that will help you understand how to make a better material? And are there results coming from those materials that would indicate that actually you are potentially making the right material for commercial viability, and there are additional tests that you may want to execute on that material to take it further down the funnel? So the goal of capturing some of the data that we capture in systematic and reliable ways really helps that decision support. So can we serve up that data and aggregate it and display it in certain ways that help you make those decisions? So talking about what we have now, and Marie's going to go into more detail on this, we think about a few parts in the life cycle of formulation, starting from sort of early research through to the more process downstream repeatable execution of those formulations. So when someone is creating a material, be that a new pharmaceutical or be that a new paint or glue or marine additive or whatever, there's a case for going and making a single batch in one go. So we use a capability that we call admin-defined tables. The math here can be defined by your administrator to do exactly as you want. You can look up your ingredients, or you can add them by hand. You can look it up from databases that you have in-house. You can look them up from databases that you maintain within the Signals application. And as you define sort of how much you want to make in your batch, how much you are planning of adding of your materials, how much you are you actually add, how when some of those materials are volatile, that they're removed, how that changes the composition, that's all handled within the math, within that table data entry. That is a part of the experiment that you're describing. So it's part of the narrative, and Signals Notebook isn't just the sort of the mathematical table that drives the calculations. It's really this framework around it that allows you to both define kind of the structured portion of your data capture, along with potentially, you know, describing how you did the experiment, what other SOPs you followed, what were the processes that you followed, what were the learnings that you made from that. You can document those very freely through a series of sort of different elements that support that data entry, be that, you know, adding the Microsoft PowerPoint or Excel or Word file that you have, or adding the instrument reports that are in a PDF, or adding the pictures that you took of your experimental setup or the material you made, and otherwise documenting kind of freely the other information that you have as part of the context of the narrative of the experiment. Now, in formulation science, it's common, but certainly not always the case that you make a single batch at one time. It's very common to make multiple batches simultaneously, so varying the composition, varying the process parameters, maybe varying the order of addition, maybe varying the actual kind of inventory items, so the vendor or the quality of your raw ingredients, to see how that affects the actual final material that you've created. To support this, where you're sort of parallelizing the creation of the batches, we have a relatively new capability we call variation tables. So you can define kind of your base components. So for example, your ingredients that you're adding into every batch, and then you can describe variants or batches that are the sort of the individual batches that you're making with the variation supported between them. And this support has sort of summary views that facilitate both understanding the nature of your variation within the experiment, but also providing weighing sheets to complete in the lab. And then as you move more downstream and have kind of more repeatable, predictable and processes, and there's more organizational expectation that those processes are followed, you can take those tables that we're describing and embed them within a more of a form. So a more prescribed process for data entry. In our world, we call that form a worksheet. And your administrator can define a worksheet that both has sort of procedural information and the structured data for the composition of the formulation all in one place. So we see this used in our life science partners in areas that are working under the umbrella of GXP, but we see this in our non-life science partners throughout those industries as those processes kind of get more formalized, more repeatable, and there's institutional expectation of repeatability of the process and people following a set procedure. Within this, you can actually manage that if you need to manage, sort of have higher controls of change, that, you know, changing data that's been entered within these worksheets adds sort of additional layers of control and oversight to those changes. And then finally, as that data is collected, the reason we're putting that data in tabular structures is really so that we can have consistency of the data entry, so it's easier for an observer to intuit what they're looking at. So it reduces that understanding burden, but also so that we can move that data downstream and we can start to aggregate it, and you can start to see the trends that your data is telling you across experiments. So you can have people working across your organization, be that in different notebooks, be that or experiments, be that in different labs, in different buildings, even in different countries around the world. You can start to build that data up to a concerted data model that will allow you to aggregate and visualize that data in ways that help you make the decisions that you need to make. Now, any software development is a journey. It's a journey, in this case, supporting the formulation science that we've been on for many years, and it's a journey that we never end. So we're always building new things for all of the scientific domains we work in, and formulation science is no different. So, you know, we partner with many of our customers to make that journey together, and the product actually is benefits from the insights that we get from those partners. But what I've just described is sort of part of that journey where we focused on the narrative portion of the work that our formulation scientists execute. So starting with you know, these single formulations, which we support through our admin-defined tables, those downstream formulations where we embed those tables within worksheets, some more complex formulations where we added some calculations and the parallelization of those we delivered through the variation tables. What we're working on now, so you know, this is part of a journey that we're on together. We're really trying to focus on improving that sort of the test and make part of that cycle, so that decision support, which is possible now, but we can make it better. So we're thinking about capturing more test data on the variations or the batches. We're planning on a more formalized library of our formulations, and then additional workflows back and forth. So to give you an idea what we're working on, and I do need to state this is not in the product right now, this is future. So you know, we're in predicting the future, it may or may not come true as we predict, but this is sort of what we're actively working on right now. The first is an extension of our variation table, so our kind of parallelization of batch, to capture results data. So this could potentially be process parameters, this could be test data, but additional data structures where there's essentially sort of additional tables of data, additional data capture per variant. So as you're making, for example, sort of a number of batches of your new, marine additive, that you can test how well that works, batch by batch by batch, right there in the same place where you're recording the making of it. And then the formalization of the materials library, we already have sort of what we would call a small molecule registration and a biologics registration. We want to extend that out to be a formulations registration. So, the experiment is good for describing kind of what you've made and how you've made it. The library is really the place to formalize the concept or the idea of the materials you've made. Build a library of them that is globally accessible around your organization. Obviously, not every formulation works, so not everything goes into the library. And having sort of the idea of your stuff disparate amongst your experiments is awkward, where sort of putting it in a single place in a library where everyone can access it and things are organized is a better way forward. So that's sort of our next initiative, and we work with a number of our partners in this space to sort of drive development and understand sort of the subtleties of requirements in here. So we're working hand in hand with the names that you would know, both through life science and through many other industrial industries. So on that, my part comes to an end. I'm going to pass over to Marie Zhu, my colleague that works actually directly with a number of potentially you and the other organizations that are thinking about implementing Signals Notebook and has a lot more exposure to sort of the practical application of what we build in real world scenarios. So Marie, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Philip. So now we are going to talk to continue with the formulations, but I will go one step back to talk about what is Signals Notebook and how it is positioned in the Signals Research Suite. So the Signals Research Suite is a fully SaaS-based platform that offers various products to give a proper solution at each step of the make, test, and decide cycle Philip already mentioned, knowing that the different solutions interact with each other. So Signals Notebook is embedded with ChemDraw for data capture and collaboration in the make part of the cycle. Signals VitroVivo can be used in the test part of it to help for data processing. And once an experiment has been prepared and structured in Signals Notebook, data result collected thanks to Signals VitroVivo, we have to make a decision. So do we continue to the next phase? Do we change something in the preparation process, or do we stop? So Signals Inventor ensures to make a data-driven scientific decision thanks to its data visualization capabilities. So now let's talk about Signals Notebook and start with its architecture. So as a cloud native system, no installation is needed to access Signals Notebook. You only need a license. This is a scalable solution because no matter how many users you have, performances don't really change thanks to its microservices architecture. As an example, Netflix uses the same architecture, allowing a large amount of users using the platform at the same time. And Signals Notebook updates are included in the license and occur more or less 6 times a year. On a user experience point of view, as this is an easy to use and intuitive system, you have the ability to drag and drop one or multiple documents in an experiment to quickly and easily populate it with your experimental data. And Signals Notebook integrates with Microsoft Office, so these documents can be opened and edited directly from Signals Notebook. And as it is cross-platform, Signals Notebook can be accessed from a tablet or any device as soon as you use Apple, Microsoft, or Android. When working in a lab and in a team, collaboration is important. Our aim is to enhance scientist collaboration with the ability to add comments mentioning another user. This user will receive a notification in the app and or by email, depending on the user setting, and we get direct links to the commented experiment. And finally, the access control can be defined more or less strictly depending on your company's policy. So you can define who has access to what, and if the access is read-only or with editing rights. Finally, we have the only offering that has integrated with ChemDraw, and we also offer robust APIs. So if I continue to Signals Notebook, we can start with the dashboard. The dashboard is the first thing you see when you log onto the system. Each user can configure it as needed to see the most important first. So it can show the latest experiment in the system, in the team, or per project, the ongoing tasks, long-term tests such as stability tests, or the one ending during the week. You also can track your materials, seeing the expiring materials, or see the equipment to calibrate, and much more. So it can be organized the way the user wants, with different colors, names, and sizes, and widgets can be shared to other users. And any searchable data can be easily highlighted on the dashboard. So I talk about searchable data. So now the question is how to make a search in Signals Notebook. So any data stored in Signals Notebook is searchable via the text search or the filters. So the filters are automatically created in the system, and users can select and combine multiple filters, and it automatically instantly returns the results, sorting the experiment from 2000 to 20 in few seconds, as you can see on this video. When it comes to the experiment creation, Signals Notebook allows to create it from scratch or to select an experiment template the user has access to. Experiment name is auto-generated with a sequence number defined by the admin. The associated metadata can be set as optional or mandatory. This is what you see as required fields and additional fields on the screenshot. So you can quickly and easily find back an experiment even years later if you have set these fields. It also allows to control who has access to what, depending on the department, project type, or any other fields. And you can define if the user has reading or editing rights, and it is based on the user roles and the user groups. When the experiment is created, content is split into different sections. The user can rename and reorder, and content can be added via the Add Content button, the green one, and you see many elements from the less structured as the text to the most structured as the worksheets to populate your experiment. So now let's focus on how formulation are tracked in Signals Notebook today. So Philippe already introduced it. A formulation table is template-based, and it gives ingredient properties and allows to define a set of formulations prepared at once. The ingredient quantities and auto-calculated properties can be seen and adjusted per formulation or in the summary view. You can see on top of the table called horizontal summary and vertical summary. And the formulation process and test results can also be recorded in a structured way and associated to each formula. So now the best thing is to see it in live. So let's have a look. at Cygnus Notebook. So, welcome to Cygnus Notebook. You first see, as already described, dashboard and the most relevant information to me. I could open the experiment I prepared for today from there, as I edited it. Experiment. So here, if I do a search, I go there and I will set some filters. So I'm looking for an experiment. So the type will be experiment. This is a recent one, so I search by the most recent experiments in the system. This is an experiment I created, so I add the creator filter. And the experiment contains the word webinar in the description. So here it is, and I open it. I can navigate through my experiment from the left-hand side. So I see the introduction part, the formulation description, associated test results, and the conclusion of the study. In the formulation table, I first see my components. So I have my ingredient list in this table. If I want to add a new ingredient, I will make a search. I directly access my material library. So I can use filters or text search to find my material. So let's type the batch I want to add in my formulation. When I select my material, I directly get material information coming from my library. So I have my trade name, the batch, the role, the supplier, or any relevant data I want to see in this table. And once I have listed all the ingredients, I go to the variants tab, and I can see all my formulations. So one table corresponds to one formula. I have 5 formulations. So the first is here, the second, third, etc. In my formulation table, I first see my ingredient informations still, and other template-based columns. In this example, I see the planned mass percent of each of all of my ingredients. If I define my batch size, it automatically calculates the planned mass of each ingredient. When I go to the lab, I will weight my ingredients. I can put the real weight in this table, and it automatically calculates the real percentage of each ingredient in my preparation. So I can make the distinction between the theoretical and the real quantities of my ingredients in my formula. I can also define other equations. So here I have my percentage solids and the price of my formula. So I can see the price of each ingredient and the total for this formulation. Once I have prepared all of my formulation, I want to have an overview of all my formulation. So I go to the horizontal summary, and here I can see side by side all my formulations. So again, I still see my ingredients, so the trade name, the role, and one column corresponds to one formula. And I can compare the planned mass percent of each of them. I also can compare, I don't know, the price. So I can define that I don't want to only see the planned mass percent of my formula, but also the planned mass, the planned price. And now I can compare both the mass percent and the price of my different formulations. If I want to change one of my formula, this one, for example, I want to change the first ingredient. I don't want 47%, but 50, and I readjust the second one. I can edit it from there, and it automatically updates the table, my formula in this in the variants section. So here I have my 50%. So each mixture is associated to a unique ID here. So I can link this ID to my process tables or my test results table, as I can see here. So I can track my formula from the beginning when I prepare my formulation composition to the end when I've got my my test results. Go back to my slides. So thanks to Signal's notebook and its capabilities, my mixtures, process parameters, and test results are recorded in a structured way. This is the most important. And the element I presented today can be extracted and visualized in Signal's Inventor. So here are some examples of Inventor dashboards. They can be designed to show tables, graphs, and other elements to compare your different formulations, their performances, their price, and allows you to make the best decision at the end of your study. So I will hand over to you, Diana.
Yep, thank you so much, Marie. I will take over again. So thank you so much, Philip and Marie, for your insightful presentations. Now we will move straight into our Q&A session for the day. If you have not had a chance yet, please submit your questions through the question box located on the right-hand side of your screen. So I'll have both Philip and Marie unmute themselves, and so we can begin our questions. So the first question, what features does Signal's Notebook offer to facilitate integration of upstream and downstream formulation science workflows?
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, we definitely see, there's two parts to supporting those workflows, right? The general aim is to capture sort of a narrative, a story of what people have done, so that people can, look at that later on if they're building a patent to protect their invention, if they're trying to repeat the results, that the work that was done is documented, so that someone else can follow it and repeat it and learn from it. So the general narrative around the experiment is really important. As things move more sort of from the research side to the development side, there's more kind of expectation of formalization, that the processes are kind of executed in the same way. So we both support sort of a very free form experiment capture on the research side, but bringing the kind of the domain specificity through the tables and variation tables to allow sort of the batch processing of the actual formulations into the research side. And as those get more formalized downstream, and those processes are more repeatable, then we bring things like worksheets and some of the other controls that we have that we built for our more regulated customers. Those can be brought to bear. So there's, for example, greater expectation that the format of the experiment and the contents of the experiment is repeatable. For example, in the worksheets, you can control a lot more about, or have tighter change management control of the addition and removal of data from within the worksheet. And once it's been entered, changing it it brings in these additional sort of processes to document why that value was changed and so on. So you see this used, and Signal's Notebook is effectively used. Obviously our larger organizations are the ones that work in both spaces simultaneously, but they're working in both sort of research-centric parts of their organization and those more downstream, be that under GXP in a life science organization, or be in just the more controlled development parts of processes in non-life science material science organizations.
Thank you. Is there a write-up on how to build the template that was just shown? Take this one's from Marie.
And actually, I'll take that one.
Sure.
The idea of the templates are that they're defined by you. Every organization we work with has subtly different needs, different nomenclature, sometimes different math, and even different needs across the organization. So although Marie was showing you one template, you may have many through your organization. We definitely provide sort of services support to onboarding customers that can help create them. And we are sort of committed to you being successful. We can potentially talk about the design of the things that we've how we built the ones that we show you in processes like this, or through any sort of assessment. Often someone who's thinking about purchasing Signals Notebook will go through some pilot phase and work with our team on building some of these out. So we certainly want to help you, but I do want you to understand that the templates do vary customer to customer, and even within your organization you may have multiple of them. So we're committed to making those flexible, so you can have many of them and you can have them different. So the value of telling you how we built this one may be more negligible.
Thank you. Can Signals Notebook be used as a database to retrieve data in a systematic way for further analysis?
I think this is can it be used as a database to retrieve the data in a more systematic way for further analysis? So yes, that is the ultimate goal. That's why we're doing all of this. This is why we put data into sort of more tabular structures so it's accessible. We do have an upcoming Connect that's around our integration strategy, and I'd certainly encourage anyone here to attend that one. We have sort of downstream analytics that we're facilitating getting this data into more seamlessly, but if you're bringing your own analytics to the party, all of the data in Signals Notebook is available. Now it's worth cautioning that it's not necessarily quite in a columnar format. If you're used to sort of a JDBC SQL driver, that's not the model that we follow in a SaaS application. Everything's via REST APIs, outputting JSON documents, but that data is available to you. All the data in Signals Notebook is available for you for downstream analytics, and that's really sort of a goal that we have always had. We've always been building things with a mind of how do you get this data out and downstream, and how do you get sort of consistency in the capture, the data we have a number of, or you can do all of this math in Excel, and we have a number of organizations that have been using Excel somewhat effectively for years. But the challenge with Excel is you as an organization have no control over how the data is captured. So despite your best efforts to create and provide a template in Excel for people to put data in, invariably they deviate from that. So by capturing the data in a very, very systematic way within Signals Notebook, you provide, in making it easier for the end users, your community to do the right thing and put that data in a structured way, you get the data cleaner further upstream, which why we're doing it is to facilitate that decision support. The carrot you use is actually becomes easier for your end user to do that, and then you reap the benefits.
Perfect. So the system offers a lot of customization by the individual user. How can the data structure be maintained?
Yeah, we use customization and to mean something very different. So in the case of these sort of tables, variation tables, the structure of those is defined by an administrator. So it's not definable by the end user, and then that's kind of the point. It's not a free-for-all. If they go and use Excel, right, the broader narrative of the experiment is very free-form and open to the end user. So we want to get out of the way of when their process is slightly different, and for this particular experiment they need to take a photograph and add that photograph, right? Or they need to add this diagram, or they had some PowerPoint presentation they needed to capture, or there was a supporting document in a PDF. We want to get out of the way of them being able to add that. But you can enforce where there's structure needed, be that sort of the structure of an experiment, and an experiment has this Word document in it, or this experiment has this table in it, or and so on. That's controlled by the administrator. So the administrator can lock down the freedom that the end user has. I wouldn't classify that freedom as customization. It's just flexibility. And specifically within these tables, the headers, the columns, how those columns, what type are they? What is the math that goes on in those, between those? It's not Excel. It's not in the end user's hands. It's defined by I use the term admin, but it's sort of a lower level admin that you can apply out to your sort of business lead, thought leader, group leader type roles, right? So they can manage their own. But that does enforce the consistency amongst the community that is using that particular table, that every table is the same.
Thank you. How to get after-service support for building out a template from a real person. Oftentimes I was directed to help pages on online manual.
Marie, do you want to take that one?
Yes. So yes, you can use our online manual. You also can contact your sales representative to get support from our services team. And if you need an introduction to our variations table, newly variations table, you can ask for a presentation.
Yes, I'll build on that. Sort of, we definitely, we're interested in you being successful. We have a support organization that are there for, hey, I think this thing's going wrong, or how does this thing work? Obviously, there's a gray area between that and a professional services organization, but they're there to help you onboard, help you train. They provide sort of ongoing education. So once, obviously with a SaaS application that's updated frequently, things are changing constantly, right? And new things are coming constantly. So there can be a need for ongoing sort of enablement and education in the new things that are coming. So that's, they provide that. Obviously there is cost to, our support organization is there for, is part of your licensing, but as things get more complex and perhaps we're building things for you, then that, then we're paid for our time. But that support services organization is there for you to help you sort of focus on the science that you're doing and have us sort of focus on sort of supporting that science and building things out. So some people go it alone. Some people lean very heavily on that organization. It's really up to you.
So how can I send my formulated sample to my analytical lab? Marie?
Yes, so in the presentation, I talked about the sample ID. So your formulation is associated to a unique ID. This ID can be reused for analytical requests. And in Cygnus Notebook, we offer a way to send tasks to other labs. So you can share information and data between the different teams and the different labs. So the formulation lab can interact with the analytical via our tasks using the sample ID.
Thank you. So how can I integrate signals with my in-house applications?
Yes, so it's a great question that, again, sort of like to highlight the upcoming Connect on integration. But certainly when we think about integration, we like to think about sort of, well, what direction it is, what is it trying to achieve? That's a pretty open-ended question. We provide a number of capabilities within the notebook where you can launch an integration from within Signals Notebook. So we can put buttons in the application that a user clicks on, and that launches an application that you're managing. You can have tables set so they source data from the databases that you have, with the end user putting in an ID that will bring content in. We can set up sort of silent listening applications that, you know, we will send a message or we'll create a log when certain events happen so that you can kick off integrations. Once you start having those integrations kind of come back into Signals Notebook to get data or even write data, then we provide a really robust public API using the RESTful standard. That's all documented through the application, through our Swagger page. Where philosophically, we don't build custom applications to a given system. So we won't deliver, for example, a Waters integration or something like that, because, you know, they're version specific and there's a gazillion different software applications out there. So we're very consistent and systematic in the way that we enable integrations. We try to be very generic to the outside world, so you would use the same methodology regardless of what you're trying to integrate with, be that downstream sort of instruments or upstream, passing instrument data in or feeding instrument data out to instruments or to the databases you have. It's also worth commenting that although you can do some of these things directly, we do actually partner with an organization called Cytara and provide that as an add-on option, which Cytara is essentially a sort of a cloud-based integration framework organization. So it has sort of connectors to Signals Notebook and to many other applications, and it's really an easy way of sort of you know, if you're integrating with 1 or 2 instruments, do it directly. If you're integrating with 100 instruments and 5 different systems, then Cytara is definitely a more efficient, much more efficient way to go.
Thank you, Philip. Will the sample ID be able to populate a user table to give the needed information easily to my analysts? Sorry.
There's a specificity to that I'm not quite understanding. Certainly the sample ID sample ID could be sort of a lookup into the table and bring sample associated data along with it. The sample ID can also be captured elsewhere in a table so that sample information can be joined. So if you're collecting data in one place and you annotate that and decorate it with a sample ID, that you could join that sample information downstream because you have that unique, as you know, essentially as a key. And within the application itself, obviously, if something's decorated with a sample ID, it provides a clickable hyperlink essentially to that sample to go and see it. So a few different potential use cases bouncing around within there, maybe for worthy of a follow-up.
Yeah, so the user did update and ask, can the sample ID be used to populate a table?
Okay, then with that specificity, yes, it can. The other part of the application you may want to use is an internal data source to kind of define what comes from the sample once you put the sample ID to populate.
Perfect. So, I'm not quite sure the specifics in this one. I believe it was in regards to your previous discussion of maybe like the timeline, but so how far along to the goal depends on case by case when the same person had requested the information regarding Signals Notebook usage database to retrieve data in a systematic way for further analysis. Sorry, I'm not sure if that helps.
Okay, I'm gonna sort of, I'm not entirely sure what the question is asking.
Mm-hmm.
I assume the question does relate to the prior one where around accessing the data within Signals Notebook. I mean, it's a little open-ended, so the ability to, as this mentioned before, the data that we have in Signals Notebook, we're facilitating getting that data out seamlessly to our analytics, in which case we take care of it all. If you want to use your analytics, you have your custom processes that also need to access Signals Notebook data. So you're going to apply some kind of machine learning algorithm that you maintain, looking at the Signals Notebook, or you're pushing that data into a data lake, or you run Tableau or Power BI and you want to sort of aggregate and analyze that data. You're using Signals Notebook as a data source, as you may use SAP, or you may use any other sort of database around your organization as a source of data. So how long to get that data out, that really sort of depends on the integration that you're doing. Our public APIs are robust and performant. I assume this actually refers to how long to build out those integrations, which really sort of depends on the quality of your developer community and the complexity of your integration. Maybe we misunderstood the question, so if we did, then restate it.
Yeah, we'll definitely make sure to gather any follow-up questions in the following days. So considering there's 5 minutes left, I want to thank you for that Q&A session, Philip and Marie. So please note, showcased on our upcoming Connect dates, as well as relevant links to further inquiries. All links were provided via the chat box, and we'll make sure to also send it out after this webinar. So I want to thank you again for joining us today in our third installment of our 2024 Signals Notebook Connect Community Series, focusing on Signals Notebook. We will have our next sessions on June 26th, which will focus on APIs with Eli Lilly. So we hope you can join us. Reminder for all those that attended this presentation that you are already registered for the series, so no need to re-register for the upcoming sessions. In between sessions, you can stay up to date on Signals Notebook new features and functionalities via our What's New section of the website and email communications, links provided previously. A big thank you to our fantastic speakers, Philip and Marie, for their insightful presentation and engaging Q&A session. Your expertise and willingness to share your knowledge with us is truly appreciated. We will address any pending questions in upcoming days, as well as share this presentation. Appreciate everyone's time in joining with us today, and have a good rest of the week. Thank you.